Good morning. Thanks for being with us today. I now call this hearing to order. Today's hearing is the first in a series that will examine how to bolster America's competitiveness and propel economic growth through innovation and entrepreneurship. America is the most innovative nation in the world. As a global hotspot of breakthroughs and emerging technologies, entrepreneurs have embraced our country's creative spirit for decades and have brought innovations into the marketplace, creating jobs and spurring economic growth. Only 20 years ago, the transformative IT wave struck the nation, generating new industries and with it new jobs and heightened economic prosperity. Currently, we stand at a critical juncture. The United States remains #1 in innovation, but with unemployment at 7.6% and a sluggish economy, communities across the nation are fighting to regain strength and bring back economic prosperity. The question remains, where do these new jobs come from, and how can America's competitive advantage in innovation drive economic growth? To address this question, various entities are taking a variety of approaches to capitalize on America's innovative spirit. For example, in my district, we have the Southeastern Institute of Manufacturing and Technology's Manufacturing Incubator Center that aids startup manufacturers to transform innovative ideas into commercial products. This sort of focus reinvigorates local communities and recognizes the unique strengths of South Carolina's 7th Congressional District. And I'm happy to have Mr. Roach, the Director of the Southeastern Institute of Manufacturing and Technology, with us here today to discuss their work. Additionally, ADP, a human capital management solutions company, which has an office in my district, works with small businesses to find innovative solutions to their business challenges. While a representative of ADP was unable to be here today, I wanted to highlight the work that they and similar companies are doing around the country to help small businesses innovate to address challenges with everyday tasks such as cash flow, regulatory and tax compliance, and human resource management. It is evident that creating innovation-friendly conditions is necessary to allow entrepreneurs to thrive and generate new jobs, yet for each community this may mean something different. Today's witnesses truly understand the challenges and conditions necessary to succeed, and I thank you all for being here and look forward to your testimony. I now yield to Ranking Member Chu for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. And before I begin, I want to congratulate you on your appointment as chair to this subcommittee on economic growth, taxes, and capital access. Congressmember Rice certainly knows about small business economics and taxes. He owned his own tax law practice before he came to Congress. So he's certainly well qualified, and I look forward to working closely with Chairman Rice on the many critical issues facing this committee. Today's hearing is the first in a series that will focus on making America more competitive. Innovation is at the center of what makes America the greatest nation in the world. The ability to turn new ideas into reality drives the U.S. economy forward, creating entirely new industries and the employment opportunities that come with them. It comes as no surprise that small business startups are responsible for leading this charge, seizing on opportunities and growing rapidly. America has a long tradition of cultivating innovation. About 40% of Nobel Prizes have been awarded to American citizens, and almost half of the world's 100 most innovative companies are located right here in the United States. Whether it was in providing electricity throughout the country, putting men on the moon, developing the Internet, or decoding the human genome, we can be proud of our legacy of discovery. Not only that, these innovative new businesses created new jobs, an average of 3 million a year. However, though America has the largest economy in the world, a highly skilled workforce, top-tier companies, and a second-to-none higher education system, there are signs that America's innovative performance is beginning to slip. In the most recent World Economic Forum rankings of national global competitiveness, the national global competitiveness, the U.S. dropped from 5th to 7th place. In fact, in 2008, America ranked #1, but we've been steadily outranked ever since. We can reverse this trend if we take certain key and critical steps. This means investing in education, funding federal research and development, strengthening our patent system, and reforming our nation's immigration system. Because of the timeliness of the last two issues, I'd like to make a few comments on them. Patents certainly incentivize creativity and innovation, rewarding people for their ideas. Businesses must also know that our nation's patent system is strong and their intellectual property will be protected. If we want to encourage more startups to invest in their businesses here in the U.S., then it's critical for us to ensure that their developments receive the protection they need. As a member of the Judiciary Subcommittee on Intellectual Property, I'm happy to say that we did pass a law providing the greatest reform to patent law in 40 years. We are also, however, continuing discussions on supporting innovations through patents. Just yesterday, we had a hearing examining the effect of abusive patent litigation. Unfortunately, there are bad players out there that abuse the system and impose obstacles for real innovative startups. Companies called patent assertion entities, or what some call patent trolls, acquire patents that they had no role in developing. Their business model is to sue companies that have related products and then seek as many settlements as they can for profit. According to a recent Boston University study, 90% of defendants in these suits are small and medium-sized companies. This poses a significant problem for startups, especially technology startups, and I'm hopeful that we can find a solution to this issue. Comprehensive immigration reform is a key issue in Congress right now and is certainly related to the issue of innovation. Immigrants have made extraordinary contributions to America's innovation. 25% of the highest growth companies in America, including iconic success stories like Intel, Google, Yahoo, and eBay, were started by immigrants. In Silicon Valley, the world's hub of innovation, immigrants helped found half of all technology and engineering companies, many of which were small startups. But many of these innovative high-tech companies can't find the workers they need because there aren't enough applicants trained in STEM, that is, science, technology, engineering, and math. To make matters worse, immigrants who study in the U.S. and want to make their great new idea a reality can't get a visa to stay and work on their startup. Instead, they are taking the next Google back home instead of growing it right here in America. It's not just employment-based visas that are critical to the success of the technology industry. We won't be able to attract the best and brightest if they can't live and work in the U.S. with their families at their sides. Immigrants are twice as likely to start a business as native-borns, and there are many who come to the U.S. through family visas. Jerry Yang, the founder of Yahoo, is a perfect example. His mother brought him from Taiwan to America when he was 10 years old on a family visa. Despite knowing only one English word, shoe, upon arrival, Yang went on to master the language and thrive in his new home, ultimately founding one of the world's largest internet companies. He created thousands of American jobs and provides a service that allows millions of Americans to be more productive. I believe a strong immigration system needs to work for our small and innovative businesses. We must reform our system so that our small businesses have the workers they need and that the students educated here can keep their ideas and businesses in America. With this in mind, I am looking forward to today's hearing, which will provide insights into what our country can do to be one of the most innovative and competitive economies in the world. I would also like to submit 2 documents for the record under unanimous consent, one documenting the cost to our American system of abusive patent litigation, and the other policy recommendations from Connect, a successful program linking inventors and entrepreneurs with the resources they need.
Without objection.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, ma'am. Without further delay, let's get to the witnesses. I appreciate every one of y'all taking your time and making the trek here to Washington to be with us to help educate us and the public about what we can do to foster innovation. You know, I see us as the greatest country that's ever been on earth, and we have so much potential, and what we need to do is do everything we can to foster that. So starting out with Mr. Roach. Mr. Roach and I are acquaintances. He is the director of the Southeastern Institute of Manufacturing and Technology, which is in Florence, South Carolina, in my district. And just so you know, my district, 8 counties in South Carolina, not with the national employment rate 7.6%, statewide unemployment rate 8.6%. Not one of my 8 counties is even at the state unemployment rate. We've got a lot of work to do, and it's through institutions like the one that Mr. Roach is the director of that we're going to start to deal with this problem. I've got one county in my district, Marion County, South Carolina, 19.2% unemployment. So there's a lot of work to be done. Mr. Roach, if you want to, thank you again for being here. If you want to tell them a little bit about you and what Southeastern Institute of Manufacturing and Technology does, I sure would appreciate that.
Thank you, Congressman Rice. I am the director of the Southeastern Institute of Manufacturing and Technology. It is a wholly owned division of Florence Darlington Technical College, which is in Florence, South Carolina. Historically, innovation has created the bulk of American jobs. We believe it will most certainly be the force that creates jobs tomorrow. We also believe that creativity and innovation are critical to the success of business, industry, and the economy. The SIMT, as we call it, was created to provide support services to existing businesses and entrepreneurs to help them be successful. Both existing companies and entrepreneurs tend to be in need of some of the same things. These typically include technology, customers, capital, and talent. The SIMT offers services in support of all these areas. Since we opened the doors of our 177,000 square feet Advanced Manufacturing Center of August of 2007, we've worked on projects for over 200 clients, with approximately 1/4 of those being entrepreneurs working on innovative new product ideas. In support of the first need, that being technology, we offer services in computer-aided design, rapid prototyping, and additive manufacturing, as well as reverse engineering. Additionally, our 3D Virtual Reality Center can develop content that allows clients to do both product and process visualization and simulation and virtual prototyping. We have provided these services to clients that range from Fortune 500 companies to entrepreneur inventors who comes to us with a sketch on the back of a napkin. It's very common. The person that comes to us with a napkin sketch, and many small manufacturers need a resource like SIMT to get their new product innovations to market. We become a part of their product development team, and in some cases we become their entire product development team. To help our clients with their second need, which is customers for their new product ideas, we create many sales and marketing visual presentations for our clients. These could be a product simulation shown on a laptop computer or an internet-based product demonstration. We use many tools, including virtual and augmented reality software, to create compelling visualizations of new product concepts. Entrepreneurs particularly use these visual applications to sell their product idea to both potential customers and investors. Several of our client entrepreneurs have been able to generate enough interest in their product idea to secure funding for their business startup. In some cases, they were even able to procure purchase orders for the product from established retail companies such as Home Depot or Lowe's. The third need, capital, is always tough to come by for innovative entrepreneurs. We're not in the capital venture business, or venture capital business. We can't offer seed money to a client to get his business going. However, what we can do is offer them some ways to leverage the capital they do have. In September of 2012, we finished construction of our new 28,000 square foot manufacturing and business incubator facility. This facility provides startup companies both office and light manufacturing space, which is reasonably priced. It has the potential to house up to 26 different startup companies. It provides amenities found in most business incubators, things like internet access, telephone service, conference and meeting rooms, shared copiers and printers, and shared commons areas where tenants can network together. Additionally, in partnership with our local Small Business Development Center, we offer training sessions for tenants on subject areas related to running a small business. Additionally, this new manufacturing and business incubator facility is adjacent to our existing Advanced Manufacturing Center, which houses our large machining center. The machining center has state-of-the-art equipment such as CNC machining centers, water jet cutting, and an inspection metrology lab. An incubator tenant that may have a limited need for this type of equipment may procure time on our equipment instead of buying their own. Access to our capital machinery can help get their business off the ground while preserving their precious operating capital. We currently have our first client tenant in the manufacturing and business incubator facility. The company, Matrix X Com, was recently accepted into the Mentor Protege program that the federal government has by Homeland Security. They feel that when they're up full production capacity, they will employ as many as 200 people in our local market. We have 2 more companies that we're currently working with to finish their product development. Ultimately, they will move into our incubator as well. The 4th need is talent, and it's almost universally in short supply today. Companies across the country say they cannot find enough skilled workers to meet their needs. Our parent organization, Florence Darlington Technical College, has its roots in training skilled workers for local industry. The SIMT carries on that tradition. We provide customized workforce development training solutions for client companies. When a startup company needs to train a new workforce or an existing company desires to raise the skill level of its current workforce, they can get that specialized training at the SIMT. In conclusion, as communities look for ways to create jobs and drive economic growth, many are finding innovation to be a key element and startup companies to be the real job creators. The Southeastern Institute of Manufacturing and Technology is an initiative to support the innovators and entrepreneurs in its home state of South Carolina, as well as the southeastern region of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Our second witness is Julie Linzer Kirk. Mrs. Kirk is the co-chair of Startup Maryland, which brings entrepreneurs together throughout Maryland to stimulate innovation and drive economic growth across the state. Startup Maryland was launched on March 30, 2012, and is one of the regional initiatives within the Startup America Partnership. A serial entrepreneur herself, Mrs. Kirk founded her first company, Applied Creative Technologies, in 1995. Thank you for testifying today, Mrs. Kirk. You may begin.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Rice, Ranking Member Chu. I'm honored to have the opportunity to talk to you about innovation as a job creator. It's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. As you mentioned, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I call it a recovering entrepreneur, but I'm not recovering very well because I surround myself by that which I'm trying to recover from. But really, in my current role as co-chair of Startup Maryland and as the executive director of the Maryland Center for Entrepreneurship in Columbia, Maryland, I feel fortunate to be surrounded by innovation every day. We have entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs coming into us with incredible ideas and inventions, and they're just looking for the resources that they need to help build their businesses. Raymond Cooper is an example of one gentleman who had a great idea. He had filed a patent for his invention. It's an innovative design for a wind turbine that's smaller and more efficient than current designs that are out there. But once he did that, he wasn't really sure where to go to get the help and the resources that he needed. It wasn't until he stepped onto the Startup Maryland bus that he found the resources that he needed. It was actually on the advice of his mother, who saw the bus on TV, that the 39-year-old gentleman came out to Bethesda, Maryland on the second to last stop of our 2.5-week tour across the state so that he could pitch his business idea. Little did he know that this unplanned visit to this big yellow bus with the Maryland state flag draped across it, that would be the catalyst that was going to help him take his invention into the marketplace and go from being a dreamer to a doer, which is what we focus on. Contrary to what many people think after seeing phenomenal successes like Google and Facebook, the road between an idea and a viable business is highly complex and full of risk. And I'm sure, Chairman Rice, you know this firsthand as a business owner and working with business owners. And I've been privileged to assist hundreds of business owners, entrepreneurs, and to help them navigate the path from concept to viable business. Unfortunately, we've lost a few along the way because of the risks. But what I found is that while there's many different paths to building a successful business, and there's a myriad of unanticipated opportunities to what we call pivot along the way, we as a community absolutely can and should provide assistance throughout the process. Communities, by way of grassroots efforts like Startup Maryland and strategic public-private partnerships, can increase the probability of success and drive greater outcomes in revenue growth and job creation. They can do this by creating, encouraging connections, promoting and celebrating a culture of entrepreneurship, and facilitating access to needed capital. This is exactly what we at Startup Maryland were told when we asked entrepreneurs across the state what they needed and what we've been focused on since we launched in March 2012. You shared a little bit about Startup Maryland. It's a regional initiative of Startup America Partnership, and it's a great example of what we can do through grassroots efforts. It's actually organized by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, and we're very much a startup organization ourselves. We're all working for free, and we have no money. However, that's never stopped an entrepreneur, and that doesn't stop us. Our focus for 2013, as we shared at the White House briefing in February, is to leverage the unique assets of Maryland to provide entrepreneurial companies with the connections, coaching, and capital that they need to start and grow, while celebrating the entrepreneurial journey, which includes successes and failures. We're hoping will provide them with an unfair advantage to help them drive increased scale. In 2012, as I mentioned before, we conceived of and executed a bus trip across the state of Maryland called the Pitch Across Maryland. And we invited these entrepreneurs to come on the bus and pitch their companies to a video camera. We then posted them on YouTube so that we could get visibility for these companies and their businesses. We thought we would get about 50 people to come on the bus. We had 168. We had to start turning people away. The tour, we made 25 stops throughout all corners of Maryland, and Maryland's not a huge state. Was also created as a way to connect these entrepreneurs with the resources that can help them to start and grow their business, and also with each other. We tried to shine a spotlight on them to raise the elevate the visibility of entrepreneurs. Now, pulling off something like this magnitude with a scant 2 months of planning required collaboration with a lot of people around the state. Universities, community colleges, incubators, and economic development agencies all stepped up to help us to customize the message for their regions and to introduce these entrepreneurs to their resources. It was amazing. You had entrepreneurs not even knowing that there was an economic development organization in their county, and we were able to make those connections. The most impactful outcome for many was the connections that they developed between each other. They were just happy to share their story and to meet other people that were going through that what can be a very lonely journey. They were excited to be connected with not only the Startup Maryland community, but also the Startup America. We had a lot of fruitful connections and partnerships that came from that. Bringing together the community of entrepreneurs was also exactly what I was hired to do by the Howard County Economic Development Authority, under the leadership of County Executive Ken Ullman, formed the Maryland Center for Entrepreneurship, not unlike the incubator that you run. We are leveraging the resources and programs. We have a technology incubator, although as an entrepreneur, I don't like using the word incubator because it sounds like a warm, fuzzy chicken. So we call it an innovation catalyst, or the ICAT. We also then connect them with other technology people in the community through the Howard Tech Council. We ran something called the Race for Innovation, where we brought in entrepreneurs, investors, supporters, and nobody knew who anybody else was, so it was just first name only, and a way to get them to connect with each other before they have to actually ask for an investment or ask for services. And that's really what it's about. It's connecting that community. And we've had mentors end up investing in or taking a leadership position in some of these startups, and finding partners, getting revenues, and even getting customers. So another key need in fostering innovation is promoting a culture that supports it. Feeding the entrepreneurial mindset runs through everything we do at Startup Maryland and the MCE, but our climate doesn't always make it easy. So being able to celebrate failure as well as success, I think, is really important so that you can get that mindset that it's okay to try things and fail. Funding is also important. If you can't have money, you can't be successful. Many examples of state and local funding, but there's a lot we can do to help that. For example, making the SBIR process a little bit faster and easier so entrepreneurs can get that in time for their businesses. There's also a large and growing gap between sustainable company and concept, and we need more seed funding for that. So the work that you're doing here is really important, and having us here to help highlight these entrepreneurs, we really appreciate it. We need to provide outlets so that we can spread these stories. We need to simplify the federal SBIR process, encourage and expand seed funding.
I'm sorry, Ms. Cook, if you can,
Yep.
if you could kind of wind up.
Absolutely. Facilitating key decision makers to bring innovations to companies to drive revenues. And then to your point, Congresswoman Chu, creating a startup-friendly track to permanent residency for foreign nationals so that they can stay in the state and keep their innovations here. Thank you.
Ms. Kirk. Next, we have our third witness, Mr. Johnson, Steve Johnson, who hails from my home state of South Carolina. Mr. Johnson is the president and CEO of Creative Ask,
Yeah.
located in Greenville, South Carolina. In 2012, his firm was competitively selected to be part of the FDA's Innovation Pathway Program. Creative Ask was also an early company to receive support and investment from the South Carolina Research Authority's SC Launch Program, which aims to bring high-tech companies into South Carolina and supports the growth of early-stage firms. Mr. Johnson, thank you for being here today. You may begin.
Thank you. Chairman Rice, Ranking Member Chu, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Johnson. I am President and CEO of Creative Ask Medical in Greenville, South Carolina. Our company began full-time operations in 2007, and we are focused on developing medical device innovations for one of the most expensive chronic diseases, end-stage renal disease or kidney failure. It represents now over a $47 billion burden to the healthcare system. These patients must rely on dialysis to live, but this costs over $86,000 per patient per year. It has also had very little innovation in the past 30 years. Creative Ask developed and now has in clinical trials at Johns Hopkins an innovative device called the Hemoaccess Valve System, which has the potential to significantly reduce the complications and cost of dialysis. Last year, as you mentioned, Creative Ask was selected competitively by the FDA to be one of the 3 inaugural companies in the agency's new Innovation Pathway Program, which is designed to accelerate the clinical testing and approval of promising new technologies without compromising patient safety. Our company is in South Carolina, which has traditionally been viewed as a flyover state when it came to innovation. You flew over us to get to either Research Triangle in North Carolina or Georgia Tech in Atlanta or Palo Alto or Boston. Now we are proud that South Carolina is quickly becoming a destination state when it comes to innovation. Over the last 6 years, over 280 technology-based companies have started up in our state. What has caused this dramatic change? One major stimulus, as Chairman Rice mentioned, has been a program created by the South Carolina Research Authority, or SCRA, called SC Launch. And while the state of South Carolina fostered the creation of this program, not a penny of state funding has supported it. This SCRA program provides tax incentive to support and encourage private donations which are used to support early-stage innovations in our state. This SCRA early-stage funding is provided not only after extensive and rigorous scrutiny of not only the technology, but its management team, its competition, its patents, as well as its path to market. Early-stage SCRA funds have triggered over $200 million in follow-on capital from angel and venture capital investors, and Forbes magazine named it as one of the top 5 economic programs in the nation. The SCRA program recognizes that capital is the fuel that drives the economic engine. Capital transforms technology into products. This then translates into manufacturing, which then translates into jobs. But something has to prime that pump. And most times, traditional sources of capital, such as banks and now even venture capital funds, want to avoid the risk of early-stage technology startups. Programs like South Carolina Launch fill that vacuum. Without this program, most of these innovation startups, including our own company, would not exist. As a native South Carolinian, I fully recognize that our state has rarely been at the top of any ranking. We are usually 48th or 49th. But that is rapidly changing when it comes to encouraging, supporting, and creating new companies with breakthrough innovation. Innovation is the key to economic growth because it is how we can compete in a global marketplace. It is also how we create good, high-paying jobs here at home. But for innovation to succeed, there must be adequate capital to mature these inventions from the lab to the market. I can tell you from personal experience that the greatest challenge is to find long-term funding. Even though Creative Ask was fortunate enough to be selected by FDA to be one of the top 3 innovations for one of the most expensive chronic diseases, it is still amazingly difficult to find capital, especially for medical devices, which takes years to develop, test, and get to market. This is the opportunity for the future, to provide attractive incentives that secure private investment to support innovative but maturing technologies. Again, thank you for this opportunity. It is something that obviously you can tell I feel very passionate about, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I'm now going to yield to Ranking Member Chu for introduction of the minority witness.
I have the pleasure of introducing Michael McGarry. Michael McGarry is the co-founder and chief political strategist of Engine Advocacy, a working group of people in the entrepreneurial sector based in San Francisco. And it is working to connect those leaders with government to effect change on issues that are important to high-growth entrepreneurial tech businesses. He also serves as a strategist with Hattery Labs, a San Francisco-based seed-stage venture fund and creative consultancy. And he is working on high-level social and brand strategy. Previously, he worked with Silicon Valley startup TuneIn and with a leading California law firm specializing in political compliance and disclosure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Chu, members of the committee. Thank you for having me here with you this morning. I want to spend my time talking about issues that will impact the true engine of economic growth in this country, which is our startup community. Startups promise the rebirth and rejuvenation of the American economy, and far from the idea that is held by many about startup life, of bespectacled youths in ironic T-shirts gallivanting around Palo Alto or the Flatiron District of New York, spending their days writing code for the next great game about unicorns, we'll all have our heads down in our phones, playing as we ride the subway to work. In fact, the startup community in America reflects the best of American business. It's dedicated men and women working in coffee shops and co-working spaces, office parks and garages in Kansas City and Austin and Pasadena and Nashville, and yes, San Francisco and New York, creating economic growth and multiplicative effects not seen in any other industry, helping power not just their own business, but in many cases countless others across the country. These men and women have created all of the net new job growth in this country for the last quarter century, and according to our recent study, Technology Works, are projected to create 4.3 jobs in local communities for every job created in a technology concern. It's for those reasons and so many others that a few of us got together to form Engine Advocacy, and for those of you who may not be familiar with our group, we got started about a year and a half ago with the intention of connecting the startup community with government at the federal, state, and local level. We did so with an eye towards turning some of the workarounds, good ideas, and innovative solutions to common problems faced by the startup community into new legislation or government programs or smart regulation that can help make it just a little easier to start and run those businesses here in America. We do that in a number of ways for a community that has largely been underrepresented here in the halls of government. Our work is balanced between direct advocacy, convening our members from all over the country with leaders in government such as yourselves, and educating all of the players by arming them with good stories and strong data that point to the impact that startups can have in driving economic growth. And that's really why I came here today. If you took a survey of startup founders and entrepreneurs, of investors, technologists, developers, engineers, and the myriad others working in startups today, they would tell you that two issues, more than any other, threaten the promise and progress of their companies. These issues, immigration reform and software patent reform, are Engine's immediate priorities and will form the basis of our advocacy work in the coming year. First, let me touch on immigration. Despite our historical competitive edge, we in the United States are facing a growing gap between the jobs we can create and the skills and employees needed to fill them. In the long term, we need to continue to work to evolve our American education system to help power that growth and give young people the skills they need to compete in a global marketplace. But in the short term, we must also realize that that most valuable resource, talent, is already on our shores. They're attending the University of Wisconsin or Kansas University or MIT or Stanford and others around the country. And unfortunately, we seem to be looking for ways in our current system to send these smart, talented, and entrepreneurial individuals either back to their countries of origin or to places like Canada or Chile or South Korea, where they've hung out the welcome sign to these promising minds, as we have done for so many years, going back to Ellis Island and Angel Island. It's imperative that we find a way to keep knowledge here, working and building business in America so that our economy can continue to grow and our businesses continue to thrive. Second, for those that can stay and others who are starting business, another specter is lurking, threatening to choke off innovation nearly at its source, and that is the danger of patent trolling. According to recent findings by the Electronic Frontier Foundation, patent trolls, or forgive me, patent assertion entities, account for 56% of all lawsuits filed against innovators. This environment creates a legal and regulatory thicket which many young companies of 2 and 3 people find incredibly hard and costly to navigate. We must find smart ways to protect innovative intellectual property and, as the Constitution says, to promote science and the useful arts. The current system in place does no such thing. In fact, it even threatens to chill innovation as young companies find fewer and fewer avenues for capital as the prospect of patent troll lawsuits grow. In the end, what's good for startups is good for small business on the whole because startups power small business. Consider the single parent making jewelry in Boise, who's able to sell to consumers all over the world thanks to Etsy, or the rural doctor in South Carolina, who is better and more readily able to diagnose cardiovascular problems in a patient because of increased computing power and new data culled from existing MRI scans, paired with three-dimensional flow visualization. That's a technology being pioneered right in our office in San Francisco and being made available by Morpheus Medical. And it's the bakery in my neighborhood in San Francisco's Sunset District that accepts credit card payments via Square on their iPad, rather than having to buy a costly point-of-sale system. The promise and potential of America's entrepreneurial future is also so much more. Yes, we can create gaming apps that distract and delight, but there is also technology being created that saves lives, that brings people closer together, and allows us to see our world and ourselves from a reframed perspective. And startups can power the next generation of American growth, if we let them. It will be in working with this committee and with our other allies in Congress which can allow for that future, our future, to be prosperous. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much for your statement. So many well-intentioned and very talented people here, and I just appreciate so much, again, you're taking your time to be here with us today. Mr. Roach, I want to start with you. I want you to tell me about particularly these technology programs that you have at the SIMT and how it's working with attracting students and what your job placement prospects are.
Yes, sir. The SIMT is part of the Florence Darlington Technical College, which is one of the 16 technical colleges in the state of South Carolina system. In our advanced manufacturing center, in our large machining center in that facility, is where we have the machine tool technology program run by the college. Those students are learning the science of machining materials. They start out with fundamental manual machining processes, and by the end of the second year of the program, they're into computer numeric control, CNC machining center, operations, programming, and setup. Those students have 100% job placement rating coming out of that program. In fact, it's very difficult for us to keep them in the program for the full 2 years because once they get marketable job skills, the local industry is out there trying to hire those students as quickly as they can to get them in the workforce because there's a shortage of those skill sets. So that program in particular is one that it's in high demand, it's high paying, and it's even difficult to get people into the program because of the science and technology level that it includes, and the young people coming out of high school today typically aren't fully prepared to go into that kind of a career path. But we're doing everything we can to try to encourage them to go down that path because there are good paying jobs in that field, and they're placed 100%.
What would you say would be the average pay scale, and what would be the prerequisites for entering the program? And do you take people, are you getting kids that have graduated from college that are entering this technical program?
Yes, sir. We get students in those programs from high school graduates to people with 4-year baccalaureate degrees from other institutions who maybe they've got a degree in English or in history or something, and they can't find a job in a job market, and they're looking for a high-tech skill set that they can market, and they end up coming back to us. We jokingly refer to ourselves as graduate school for some of the 4-year universities because we get a lot of their graduates coming back to get a skill that they can market. The prerequisites essentially are the ability to do math and science. They need a good, strong STEM background. Once they've got those prerequisites under their belt, they make very good students in these programs.
How many students do you take in this program?
Currently, we have approximately 40 students per year in the program. That includes both first year and second year, so about 20 in each group.
Is that your capacity? Or?
No, sir. That is not our capacity. That's basically what we're being limited to by the local pool of candidates. willing to go into the program. In our local area, we've had a difficult time with the K-12 system actually steering students away from these kinds of career paths in their education going through high school. So we're trying to bring them in.
And I just want your opinion. What's the status of manufacturing in the United States?
State of manufacturing is strong. Even though we are down on job count, the manufactured products generated by this country are as great as they've ever been. The big difference is that it's being done with technology more than with people. So the people that work in the industry today have to have a higher skill set, they have to have more training, and they get higher paying jobs. So it's a question of same output, fewer numbers of heads, but greater skills, greater pay scales. And manufacturing is not dead. It's not going away. It's just different.
And you're there, and you're ready to provide the skills.
Yes, sir.
But you can't find the people to sign up for your program.
That's part of the difficulty is getting the pipeline filled with people that are interested in going into manufacturing because of the news is always talking about manufacturing is dying. No one wants to go into manufacturing. We have a hard time with parents steering their children away from that kind of a career path, even though a machine tool student graduating from our 2-year associate degree program today starts out at anywhere from $17 to $20 an hour with the possibility of going up to as high as $30 an hour with about 5 years experience under their belt. Good paying jobs.
These jobs, are you placing them in the local area? Or are they going nationwide? Tell me about your...
This particular program is local. There's enough demand in our local market that it's gobbling up all of our graduates. But we've gotten calls from companies as far away as Kentucky and the Midwest looking for people with this skill set. They've heard about our program through the SIMT, and they're asking, can we come in and talk to your graduates? Can we get them to come to our facilities? And we say, yes, you can come and talk to them, but typically they want to stay close to home, and there's a job for them waiting right here in the local market. We're providing as many as we can get our hands on to the industry.
And one more question. I put you on the spot. What's your tuition?
Our tuition at Florence Darlington Tech, I don't know the exact number because I don't deal with it myself on a daily basis, but we're about $150 a credit hour. So a full load is, $1,700, $1,800 a semester. And in our case, with the state of South Carolina's lottery tuition assistance program, about 80% of our students qualify for some sort of financial aid, either federal Pell Grants or state lottery tuition assistance. So by the time they're done, most of our students either go for nothing or for $200 or $300 out of pocket a semester, not counting books. Books, of course, are additional.
And can you stand up and turn around and show me your cape?
No, sir, I don't think I can do that. I can't bounce bullets off my chest either.
Mrs. Kirk, could you please tell me, some specific assistance? I want to know more about, did you say you work for free?
The Startup Maryland is all by entrepreneurs who are donating their time. So we're all volunteering our time to bring together the ecosystem.
I bet you have a pretty big cape, too.
No. It's a great community of support. Everybody pitches in. I think any entrepreneur that's been successful, even if they've failed and have really enjoyed the process, which most of them do, they want to give back. They want to go and help. I'm always amazed at the generosity of entrepreneurs to help other entrepreneurs.
Now, is this entity, I assume, get some kind of funding, federal or no funding?
No. In fact, it was interesting when we said we wanted to do a bus, everybody just kind of looked at us and said, yeah, how are you going to do that? And so we figured it out. We went out and raised money from corporations. We got some money from like the Howard County Economic Development Authority, put the first money in for the bus. And once you start going, we were selling the idea before we had it fully funded. I mean, that's kind of what entrepreneurs end up doing. We then charged all of the stops a stoppage fee so that they actually help to supplement the bus tour. So it's about being creative. It's about figuring out a way, and that's what entrepreneurs do. It's not sitting back and waiting. I mean, we'd love to take money, and the Maryland state government did support us, but we got started before we had that. We went out and started raising money and talking about getting people excited about the idea, which is what entrepreneurs have to do.
It sounds like you're doing a considerable amount of marketing and letting people know about available resources that are already there.
A lot of it is just grassroots, Twitter and Facebook, and people talking about it to their friends. It's more of a grassroots type of an effort, no marketing budget.
The bus tour sounds like it was a very innovative, brilliant marketing plan. So when an entrepreneur, how do they contact you?
How do they contact Startup Maryland? We've got a website, startupmd.org. And in fact, Startup America has several startup regions, 38 regions across the country. S.co is the S.co, that's all you have to type in, is the Startup America, and you can get access to the regions across, that's closest to you.
Tell me more about the National Startup America.
So the National Startup America was a partnership with the Case Foundation and Kauffman Foundation, and they set out to help to do what we're doing, help entrepreneurs across the country. And so they're pulling in.
How old is this entity?
2.5 years, I think. It's fairly new.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Obviously, I could go on, right? So it's what they realize is that each region really needs something a little bit different. And so they formed the regional initiatives so that the folks in the region could figure out what does that region need the most. So for example, in Tennessee, they had no incubators. So they connected Startup America. They formed Startup Tennessee, and now they have incubators across the state of Tennessee and are doing an amazing job of getting innovations and turning them into businesses. There's a Startup California. There's a Startup Virginia, Maryland, and D.C. We call it the Startup DMV, where we try to work together because we're so close. And each region is focused on whatever that region needs. In Maryland, we needed to connect all these great resources we have. We have Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland, but they operated in silos, and so they needed that connective tissue, and that's what we've been providing to them.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Mr. Johnson. I have one more question for you, Mrs. Kirk. So when somebody contacts you, gets in touch with you through your website, what specific aid can you give them?
Well, first we figure out what they need, what stage they're at, and then we will often connect them with their local jurisdictions, the resources there. But within Startup Maryland, we've started a couple of new programs. We have a web portal called Co-Founders Lab that connects team members, it's like the eHarmony for entrepreneurs. So you can go in and find a team member. We have a program that we're just kicking off called Raise Your Game. That's for existing companies that can connect them into a community and help them to go to their next growth inflection point. We have another startup that we've partnered with called Fosterly that is a resource map of all the resources in the state. It's crowdsourced. So we figure out really what it is that what they need and then connect them into the network to find it.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirk. Mr. Johnson, thank you again for coming all the way here from Greenville. Mm-hmm. Wow, it sounds like you've done big things coming up with help for people with dialysis needs. That is wonderful. How specifically did SCRA help you get off the ground?
When we were forming the company in 2007, obviously we realized that with an implantable mechanical long-term blood exposure device, this was not going to be either a short-term or inexpensive process. We needed, if you will, the term we use is runway. We needed a runway to raise money. We went to South Carolina Launch and pitched them on the concept of our device, the kind of need that there was in the market, the fact that there had been no innovation in the field in 30 years. And we were able to get a $200,000 grant from South Carolina Launch that basically bought us about 9 months of time. During that period of time, we went to the private investors in the area. We brought together 40 angel investors, and we raised $3.4 million. That $3.4 million was based upon our achieving set milestones. And I think that's a key, too, to our success and to any startup.
Was SC Launch or SCRA involved in pulling together these investors?
We pulled together the investors. They were the mechanism that gave us the funding to allow us that time to pull those investors together. But in that 6-month period of time, we were able to raise $3.4 million as a total commitment from those investors, and then based upon milestones of developing a finished prototype, of then completing animal trials, and then beginning human clinical trials, various tranches were called in from those investors based upon our success. But truly, and we have received 3 installments from South Carolina Launch. The first enabled us to get off and running. The second one enabled us to actually create our finished prototype that is a finished device that is being implanted in humans now. And the third tranche came last year when, frankly, we were just out of cash. And it frequently happens. And again, even though we have one of the first innovations in this field in 30 years, it is still, in this environment, extremely difficult to raise capital, even among the venture capital community, because they want lower and lower risk and greater assurance of success. And in medical devices, you're always at the exposure of what happens in the human body that you don't see in the lab. And so it's not always linear, it's not always predictable, but it's something that we live with.
Thank you. Mr. McGarry, I want to ask you questions, but I've taken far too much time already. Not that I don't appreciate what you do or the fact that you're here, and I appreciate it very much. I could talk to each one of you for an hour. So just thank you all very much for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing helping create business and jobs in this country. And with that, I'm going to yield to the ranking member, Mrs. Chu.
Thank you so much. And, well, I have questions for Mr. McGarry. Mr. McGarry, according to a study from the Center on Education and the Workforce at Georgetown University, the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math could have a 230,000 shortfall of advanced degrees in the U.S. by 2018. What do you think is the best way to address this shortfall?
Thank you, Ranking Member Chu. I think that it's critically important to address this in a number of ways and looking at the entirety of the system. Obviously, in the long term, we need to address the educational system we've got in this country and really retrofit it for the jobs we're creating moving forward in the 21st century and train young people of promise to be part of these science, technology, engineering, mathematics disciplines to take those positions. The short-term answer to that is comprehensive immigration reform, and as part of that, it really does have focus on technology. Obviously, your colleagues across the street have shown us their proposal. The Senate has come out with their proposal on immigration, which has some good in it for technology, including improved access to H-1B and things like that. We've done a recent study that I referenced in my opening statement called Technology Works, which has similar findings, and we'll be diving deeper into those throughout the year, alongside the Georgetown study. And we are seeing the same thing, that we are going to have a gap between the jobs we're already creating and the jobs and the skills needed to fill that and the talent needed to fill those jobs. So it's critically important that we start that process now. We've got people here in our universities, as I mentioned, who are ready to take on those jobs or to create their own companies, their own startups and communities all around the country that would in fact create even more. We've got to do better at keeping those people here. It's not about even opening up so much. It is keeping people that are already here, as opposed to sending that creativity and that entrepreneurship and those skills overseas. So in the long-term education, in the short term, we've got to keep people here.
And talking about the short term, can you give us an example of how our broken immigration system is hurting startups?
Well, I'll give you a one that's clear and plain as day from last week. On the 1st of April, and this is not an April Fool's joke, we opened the H-1B process for high-skilled people to apply to stay here. There were 65,000 visas available. There were 124,000 applications. So not only are we keeping half of the people here, we're sending half of them home on a coin flip. We don't even, frankly, know if we're keeping the right 65,000 people here. That's a sin. Those are 124,000 very skilled people that would power immense job growth, not just in technology, but as I mentioned, it would also engender job growth in the communities that surround it to a level of 4.3 jobs created for every high-tech job. So sending these people back overseas is awful and something we need to fix immediately. On the very same day in Canada, they opened their startup visa program. There's a very nicely designed website that shows you all the different pathways and the people in government that will help you as an entrepreneur come and start a business in Vancouver and Toronto or any city across Canada to start your business there. And they'll help you get a visa and they'll help you start. So instead of shipping people away, they're asking people to come in. They're not alone in that. There are other countries, like I said, with the welcome sign out. We've got to be one of those countries again. We have a history of that in the United States. I'm a descendant of immigrants, as so many people are in this country. We've got to make it, once again, so that the highly skilled people that are powering economic growth on all sectors of the economy can stay here in the United States and start business.
I'd like to turn now to the patent issue, and you certainly were very eloquent in talking about the effect of that on startups. Could you give us an example of how these patent assertion entities, or as some call patent trolls, how they work on the existing companies that do productive work, and also any insights in terms of solutions that Congress could undertake?
So I'll answer that by telling a quick story. My co-founder was on a panel at, I think it was Stanford Law School, and this is about a year ago now. It was him. It was a lawyer from a big law firm with an IP practice, and it was a gentleman from Intellectual Ventures, which is one of the most notable patent assertion entities out there. And a student asked a question. He says, I'm starting a business, and I think there might be some patent issues with this. How do I protect myself? And this is, a early 20s, starting his first business, wanting to get started. And the gentleman from Intellectual Ventures says, well, you can come to us and you can license our patent portfolio, because what they do is go up and buy patents, and they don't create products with them. But then they license them back to companies that will in some cases, or they use them as leverage against companies that are infringing them, knowingly or not, in court battles. And so that'll cost you about $250,000. And then they went to the attorney sitting next to him and they said, well, actually, you can come to us and we'll protect you from the patent trolls and we'll represent you in court. And that'll cost you about $250,000. And then they got to Josh, my co-founder, and he looked down the table and go, you people are all crazy, right? No startup, and certainly no venture capital firm, and in my day job, which I get to do very infrequently these days, I work for venture capital, and I see this every day. No venture capital firm is going to make an investment of $250,000 in a company so that they can then send that money into litigation. And that, by the way, is an opening offer. That's just to clear off the simplest of infringements, unknowing, what have you. It goes so much deeper than that. There are a lot of things that we can do, I think, on a legislative level and on a regulatory level that Congress can lead on. Most notably is working with the Patent and Trademark Office to reform some of their policies on software patents and making sure that that fewer bad patents get through. There's been a lot of that. There's a provision in the American Invents Act which allows for financial services patents to be re-examined and thrown out if they were not found to be useful. I think extending that to software would be good as well. But also looking at things like fee shifting and other areas, things like we've seen in your colleague Congressman DeFazio's SHIELD Act, which is co-sponsored by Congressman Chaffetz, that's been out for a while, which we've taken a good look at and we're broadly supportive of. I think there are a number of avenues for doing this, but I like to say that if you ask for the top 5 issue areas concerning startups, the first 4 would be immigration, but that 5th one is definitely patent. It is right there, and we are looking at ways to work with the community on the whole and all of you here in Congress to make that situation much better.
Thank you. Mr. Roach, I was interested in your comments about a couple of important programs in Congress, the Mentor Protege Program as well as the SBDCs. You mentioned that your first client tenant in the Manufacturing and Business Incubator facility had been accepted into the Mentor Protege Program. And I was very interested in this because in the last Congressman Schilling and I introduced a bill to improve that mentor protege program, and it did pass. So could you talk about why this program was so important to your client and how it could help startups and small businesses to be more innovative?
Well, I'll try. I'm not a real expert in the program. My understanding of the way the program works is that if these small companies have some sort of technology that is of interest to the Federal Government, whether military or Homeland Security or who it is, they're paired up with a company who's already doing business with the government in that area. And that company sort of shepherds the small startup company through some of the government bureaucracy, the red tape of government procurement, things like that, as well as offering technical support in some areas to these small startup companies to help them really get their product developed, get it to market, and get it into the hands of the people within the government who want that technology, sort of fast track it as best they can. That's kind of my understanding of the program. I'm not an expert in the program.
But I appreciate your insights. And small business development centers have provided training sessions to tenants of your incubator. So could you talk about these SBDCs, small business development centers, and how they have helped in what you're doing, as well as if there were cuts, which there could be cuts of $10 million due to the sequester, how that would affect the situation?
Well, as far as our interface with the SBDC, we actually have one of the offices on our main college campus. It's one of the group in the state of South Carolina. We work closely with that group all the time with our incubator facility. They actually help us do a good job of pre-screening a lot of potential candidates into our center. I just had someone visit me this past week who wanted to come into my incubator and rent space, and when I discussed it with him, it was obvious he had no idea what starting up a business was even about. He just had a good idea, he thought, and he wanted to come to me and rent space. I want him to go through the SBDC process because they will shepherd him again through the process, help him create a business plan, be a good sounding board, whether his concept even is sound. All those steps that he really needs to do before he comes to see me at my incubator facility, because I can't give him that sort of grassroots guidance that the SBDC can. So we lean on them heavily to help us sort of pre-screen or filter potential tenants in our facility. And they do a great job in our area. They work with a lot of people who just, they've got an idea and they don't have a clue what they need to do as the first step to get started. They don't even know what a business plan is. They just, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to make $1 million today, no matter what, I've got a good idea. So if I can say anything about the SBDC, we need to do everything we can to keep those folks in business. I don't know what the sequestration cuts might do to them. I haven't got a clue, but we need to do what we can to keep those people doing what they do, because they are a godsend to people in the startup phase of contemplating a new business.
Thank you for that insight. I really appreciate it. And I yield back.
All right. I now yield to Mr. Swikert for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry I missed some of the testimonies. As we all know, this is the wacky time of year where they have you in two different committees, but at least we're on the same floor of this building. In listening to this, and this is sort of a question, and I was going to start with Ms. Kirk, access to capital. I have a personal fixation because of my participation with the Jobs Act last year. And how do you get smaller companies and access to money? With what you're doing in Maryland, issue, non-issue, where does that rank? Because
huge issue. Yeah, huge issue. There's a lot of companies, as he was talking about venture capital, they are going farther and farther away from pre-revenue. They want a less riskier deal. But in the beginning, there are no guarantees, especially if you have to go through FDA approval and things. So it's a huge deal. We have companies looking for, and loans are harder to get too. Thankfully the SBA does back loans, and that's helpful. But there's a lot of, because of the economy, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who maybe don't have great credit. That doesn't mean they're bad people. That doesn't mean that they can't build a phenomenal business.
Well, from some of the smallest ventures you've had approach you in Maryland, how small? I mean, where do you see the entry point of someone with a good idea? I mean, are they looking for $1 million?
Sometimes it's, can you buy me a laptop? I need $1,500 to get a laptop. I need $5,000 to file a patent.
Mr. Roche, for you, where do you see some of your starting point entrepreneurs? What are they hunting for?
Very similar. In a lot of cases, the fellow I just mentioned who was looking to rent office space, all he needed really was, in his case, I think he had a laptop computer already, so he didn't need that, but he needed some amount of money to even pay his rent. You know, he was off the hip for any rent money.
Why does it sound like something I would end up investing in? Mr. Johnson, same question.
You know, it's very, very, very challenging. Venture capital, again, they want revenue-generating companies. And again, it is very difficult to get to that point when you're under regulatory scrutiny. And again, I think there is a great opportunity to improve the connection between NIH and FDA. They have been siloed too many times in the past.
Well, but that's not where, you know, the first level of entrepreneurial innovation is coming from. Mr. McGrath. And you're also, you have a relationship with the VC world, right?
That's correct. I do retain a desk anyway at a venture capital fund in San Francisco, and we make early stage investments in consumer and retail and enterprise companies.
Because where I was going to come back to you is, I know you said my first four is immigration talent, which, you know, having a large Intel facility in my state and these things, I hear that all the time. But somewhere in there, I was hoping I could get you to adjust your top 5 to have access to capital.
Well, the good news, Congressman, is that through your work on the Jobs Act, that's less of a worry for us, because especially for early stage investors, for early stage startups, there should be better access to capital. Now, there's a very interesting clause in that sentence, isn't there?
Yeah,
should be.
Should be. Well,
you've done your work, and we thank you for it. But we need the Securities and Exchange Commission to enact the law.
Say that again.
You have done your work, Congressman.
No, not that part. No,
we need the SEC.
Yeah, no, I get enough flattery around here. I never knew I was so tall and good looking until I got elected as member of Congress. But it's our discussion. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. But the discussion, and I don't want to beat up on them because they've had a lot of interesting situations over at the SEC, but we all came together as a body, moved a bipartisan piece of legislation, and something like crowdfunding. You know, it's the egalitarian access to put up an idea, have it vetted through the internet, have us write positive and nasty things about it on blogs, and be able to raise up to $1 million. And we can't get it through the bureaucracy, and we're over a year late on the rule set. And I guess where I was heading on this is you all build these silos and these organizations to help people. You're out there doing VC. You're trying to bring talent together. And yet it's our own bureaucracy that's starving this next generation, because who knows what that great idea is going to be. It's in someone's garage right now. It's probably not at the National Institutes. It's probably in someone's garage. So please help us continue to fuss at the SEC to get these rule sets out. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I recognize Mr. Barber.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses for coming. I'm sorry I missed some of your testimony, but I was here certainly to hear about the good work you're doing. And particularly, Ms. Kirk, I'm very impressed. You know, when you said, how much does it cost, you said nothing. And, of course, people are investing time and energy in providing that kind of collaboration and knowledge to others, and I really commend you for what you're doing. I want to talk a little bit about how we move research, university research, from the university to small businesses. Yesterday, I met with President Ann Weaver Hart, who is the new president of the University of Arizona, which is one of the premier state universities in research, notwithstanding what's going on at ASU, Congressman Schweikert. But she, one of her earliest decisions as president was to establish what she calls Tech Launch Arizona. We know we have incredibly smart researchers, people who really know that part of our world very well, great scientists. but I think they would be the first to admit they don't know a whole lot about how to make something a commercial product. So this enterprise brings in expertise from the College of Business to help these professors and researchers get their product quickly to market. Arizona, Southern Arizona in particular, has a very strong foundation of bioscience, high-tech industries, and a burgeoning solar industry. So we have a base on which we can build. I guess my question to you and to any other one of the witnesses who would like to respond is, what can Congress do to help move, first of all, to fund and then move research to the market quickly? You know, small businesses, we all know this, are the engine of our economy. These innovations have the opportunity to provide great paying jobs that will last forever, that will help people in many, many ways. And I'd just like your advice on what it is we can do specifically in this arena to help research universities get those products to market so that we can actually build those businesses. Mr. Johnson.
Traditionally, the university tech transfer offices are overwhelmed. I think what needs to happen is if there could be assistance that could go to the research universities in order to help them inventory their technologies that are on the shelf and help match those against market needs. Unfortunately, so much university research is done sometimes in a vacuum. It is not connected to a need in the marketplace that pulls that technology through. Any assistance that could help those universities analyze markets, see market needs, get them in touch with real entrepreneurial ventures like Ms. Kirk's, and help them understand the process. You don't want a researcher running a business, and all the data points to that. But you do need them to help transfer it out into people's hands that can do that.
And I would say so one of the programs that I taught is called Activate, and it's helping mid-career women start tech-based businesses, and it's all based on commercialization. We started out teaching them. As an entrepreneur, I had no idea there was this rich resource of intellectual property sitting in these universities and government labs. So educating the public about this opportunity and this imperative that we need to do. We're getting ready to launch a program working with the NSA, Johns Hopkins, and APL to accelerate the commercialization of technology by bringing entrepreneurial thinking people in, teaming them with the researchers so that they can form a team. The researchers can keep doing what they love to do and have the entrepreneurs bring those commercial products to the commercial world.
I'd really like to know more about that initiative. One of my staff is here, my legislative director. We'd love to be able to learn a lot more about that. This is a venture in our community that's in its infancy. We've had tech launch programs across the university, and this is the first attempt to really bring all of that expertise together with all of the struggle that it will be to take people away from their departments. But I think it's the future for our economy in many respects and many other states as well. So we'd love to hear more about your initiative. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, sir. Again, everybody, thank you so very, very much for being here today. You all came a long way. You all are doing your part to move our country forward, and I cannot express in words my gratitude for what you're doing. America is at a crossroads, and cultivating our innovative strength to foster job creation and economic growth is necessary if we're going to compete on a worldwide stage. As our witnesses today demonstrate, America's innovative spirit is alive and well. I'm encouraged by local communities and private entities who are finding creative ways to embrace this spirit and aid entrepreneurs in turning their ideas into viable business products. I ask unanimous consent that the members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record. Without objection so ordered, the hearing is now adjourned.